Hello, Duke Brander here, doing a little bit of metalworking. I wanted to show, this is more of a ironworking medieval technique. It's chisel cutting steel, but you can also use this chisel cutting technique to cut non-ferrous material as well. When you're doing it in steel iron, this plate here is 1/8 inch thick. We're going to do a pass cold to get our line indented into the steel for the shape we're going to do, and then I'd have to go to high red, low orange heat to finish cutting it out. This is an example that I have here that ended up being a nasal that I did a number of years ago for this nasal helm for Viking reenactment. And you can see the chisel cut lines and marks around the border of that nasal. And like I said, that was done out of this piece of 1/8 inch steel. So now I'm going to show, I think you can see 2 3-inch circles I want to cut out of this. So I have to use that same technique. And I have tools. I have my handy dandy treadle hammer. This technique can also be done with by hand with a hammer and a chisel, or a chisel being held by somebody guiding the tool, and then a striker. Treadle hammer just makes it a lot easier, more controllable, and only requires one person. This is one of the standard chisels I use for this, and it's made out of S3 steel. It's got a slight radius on that surface, and it's pretty sharp. It's kind of sharp like a dull knife would be. This is another chisel for the same process. You can see it's smaller in width, about the same type of edge. This one's got to be for doing tighter circles and forms of that nature. I do have one that'll do very small circles, and I'm having to redress this one because it got damaged, but you don't use this one very often. So I want to show this technique again. I also have this vice grip that's made so that it can grab a hold of forms such as round shape, or maybe hex or octagonal shape. Not necessarily really good with square shapes though, although it still could. But this has got to keep me from hitting my hand if I'm doing something idiotic when I'm striking with the treadle hammer. So when we set up the tool, we need to align that chisel in a direction that is easiest to hold, and will move the material probably more than the chisel, but we'll certainly move both. So I'm going to try to show this a little bit, and then I'll try to show it in other passes as well. So this has got to get loud, so I apologize for that beforehand. And so I took a minute to put a little bit better silver mark on that 3-inch diameter circle so I could see it easier. And I also flattened out that entire sheet better so it would sit more flush to the base of that treadle hammer. So you can see I'm starting to create that cold cut groove in that steel. The process that I'm using as I'm doing the chiseling is a process of, I'm just going to show you on the edge of the anvil of the treadle hammer. We hit, so it's got a mark, then we move the chisel on an angle, drag it about 1/2 to 3/4 of the way forward, so some of it's still in that groove we just made, rotate it back to flat or to square, and then hit again. So angle, drag, flat, strike. Angle, drag, flat, strike. Angle, drag, flat, straight. So you can see, hopefully, that mark I've made is a nice lined chisel mark. It's right down there. So I took a moment to finish chisel cutting in cold that first circle. It's about 1/4 of the way into the thickness of that flat sheet, and I paused it so that I could do some work without engaging the noise onto the video. And now I'm going to do the same thing on this other circle. So I learned this technique from the last master blacksmith of Yellen Studios, and his name was George Dixon. Took his class back in approximately 2003, I want to say, but it was an excellent class, and it was all about chisel cutting and all the other different techniques that I learned that are more of an art blacksmithing technique. This chisel method gives you that chamfered edge on steel, especially on plate, that we see so often in medieval and Renaissance ironwork, especially for plates and hinges and lock plates, things of that nature. So I hope you learned something, and if you have any questions, just write them in the comments. Thanks. Bye.